The Holy Gospel according to Matthew. Jesus put before the crowds another parable. The kingdom of heaven may be compared to someone who sowed good seed in his field. But while everybody was asleep, an enemy came and sowed seeds among the wheat and then went away. So when the plants came up and bore grain, then the weeds appeared as well. And the slaves of the householder came to him and said, "Master, did you not sow good seed in your field? Where then did these weeds come from?" He answered, "An enemy has done this." The slave said to him, "Then do you want us to go and gather them?" But the master replied, "No. For in gathering the weeds, you would uproot the wheat along with them. Let both of them grow together until the harvest. And at harvest time, I will tell the reapers, collect the weeds first and bind them in bundles to be burned, but gather the wheat into my barn." Then he left the crowds and went into the house. And his disciples approached him, saying, "Explain to us the parable of the weeds of the field." Jesus answered, "The one who sows the good seed is the Son of Man. The field is the world, and the good seed are the children of the kingdom. The weeds are the children of the evil one, and the enemy who sowed them is the devil. The harvest is the end of the age, and the reapers are angels. Just as the weeds are collected and burned up with fire, so it will be at the end of the age. The Son of Man will send his angels, and they will collect out of his kingdom all causes of sin and all evildoers, and they will throw them into the furnace of fire, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Then the righteous will shine like the sun in the kingdom of their Father. Let anyone with ears listen." The Gospel of the Lord. My kids think that monarchs are rare, but I know differently. I know they're not supposed to be anyway. I remember seeing them everywhere when I was a kid, and even up until we left for Britain about 10 years ago. In 2016, we moved to Ann Arbor in late summer. I didn't even see one that year, and I remember thinking that was odd. Encouraged by a friend, the next spring I started to dig under the uninspired landscaping around our house, which had been a grad student rental, and planted a garden for pollinators. Last summer, I tackled the flower beds around our house and encircling our yard, and this year we dug under some turf and planted a rain garden. Within the next 2 to 3 years, I expect our yard will be bursting with flowers and host plants for all kinds of butterflies and other insects. I planted my first milkweed plant 2 years ago. Last year I planted a few more, and they were quickly devoured by monarch caterpillars because they were so little. And we think the caterpillars were then eaten by the skunks and possums that frequent our yard at night. This year, with stronger roots, they came back taller, but as of just last week, I still had yet to see even a single monarch all summer long. Our milkweed, which is the only host plant for monarchs, now tall and blooming and ready to host monarch caterpillars, has remained untouched. I found out from that same insect and plant-loving friend that monarch overwintering grounds in Mexico covered only about 7 acres this past winter, down from about 15 the previous winter. 15 acres is actually considered the extinction threshold for monarchs. Things are not looking good. A lot of the decrease is chalked up to pesticide use, both in residential areas and in agriculture, as well as a loss of habitat as more and more land gets cleared for agriculture and suburban developments, and native host plants are replaced by barren lawns. And such a massive loss can seem totally insurmountable, a change we're heading toward at full throttle with no hope of changing course. And my little pollinator patches on my little plot of land in Ann Arbor doesn't seem like much of a solution. On some level, all of us must know that monarch extinction is not actually inevitable. We know that with the help of the Endangered Species Act, we have successfully helped several animal species, including the gray whale and the bald eagle, revive their numbers back from the brink of extinction. And yet, with monarchs and other endangered insects, it can seem hopeless. It can seem like there's simply no way to fight back against the constant drumbeat of human progress and development, the desire for more and bigger things that has led to the decline of monarchs and the bees and several types of beloved songbirds, among many other things. It could seem like the world is breaking apart before our eyes and that there is no hope, and that none of the little things we might do matter. And yet it has happened so slowly that we could be forgiven for not noticing at all, because it is not our food and homes that are being destroyed. Because our culture has taught us that our human domination of nature is a requirement for the creation of beauty. A lot of things that have happened in the past few months have simply laid bare the impossible situations so many of our siblings are in. Suddenly, in a pandemic, we realize that maybe we shouldn't be forcing people to go to work with a cold or evicting them if they've lost their job and can't pay the rent, even just as a matter of public health, never mind compassion. Suddenly, we're reckoning with the fact that dilapidated, neglected school buildings cannot simply be made safe for students, teachers, and staff, suddenly, because there's a pandemic. Suddenly, we've had time to really pay attention to all those videos showing that police really do treat our black and brown siblings differently. We thought we were living in an inevitable world, but the veil has been pulled back from our eyes. Now we know that the world as it is not inevitable, that change is, in fact, possible. Paul writes, "We know that the whole creation has been groaning in labor pains until now. Not only the creation, but we ourselves who have the first fruits of the Spirit groan inwardly while we wait for adoption, the redemption of our bodies. For in hope we were saved." Now, hope that is seen is not hope. For who hopes for what is seen? But if we hope for what we do not see, we wait for it with patience. Creation groans under the pretty illusions we have created for ourselves. Creation groans for every worker forced to smile, chug Dayquil, and work sick, for every person forced from their home and then ignored, for every student in a neglected building, for every person who sees the police as a source of threat rather than safety, for every monarch who cannot find a place to lay her eggs. The world was never meant to be this way, and we do not have to accept that this is how it must be. Because we can dare to hope for something better. There's a reason Paul talks about creation groaning and labor pains here. Change is not easy. It is hard, painful work to enact real change, to pull back the veil and reveal the things we'd rather not see. It is hard, painful work to acknowledge that sometimes we benefited from injustice. It is hard, painful work to acknowledge that things really could have been better all along. But as any mother knows, the pain of labor is worth it. That pain, unlike any other, is truly in the service of something better. When I gave birth to my kids, there were photos on the walls of newborn babies to help me remember why I was laboring. And the midwives coached me along by telling me to imagine the sweet child I would be bringing into the world. Hope is only possible when we accept that change is necessary, and that hope of things not seen accompanies us through the labor pains of change. Ijeoma Oluo writes, "I believe that it is a particularly cruel racism to believe that we should be sacrificed to nothing more than a collective lack of vision and fear of change." I saw one monarch in our yard a couple of days ago. They're still here, but they are rare. To me, their presence is a glimpse of what is possible. With any luck, we'll have caterpillars soon, and our little yard will contribute something to their survival, however small. My kids think it's normal not to see monarchs, but we know better.